Shown you by Assassin's Creed Revelations in 2021. Is a game from 2011 really worth your precious time? Let's find out. We will be going through each sequence, critiquing and fanboying over narrative choices and gameplay design, so this will be a Assassin's Creed Revelations spoiler review. Welcome to Classic Game Reviews, where we go back in time and take a look at the games of the past, and today's game is Assassin's Creed Revelations. Remember, you are watching a small channel here, so any support would be greatly appreciated through a like or even a comment so you can cure my unbearable loneliness. And thank you to all 33 of you who have subscribed over the last month. Sequences 1 to 4.
That's a 10.
Assassin's Creed Revelations opens quickly, explaining what Desmond is doing and provides the necessary context for this story to exist within the current lore, and wastes absolutely no time. We immediately pick up with Ezio. Ezio is old and frail and is very aware of that fact. He seeks knowledge and wisdom from the past in hopes of answering the many questions he's been forced to ask.
Who is Desmond? I don't understand. Please wait. I have so many questions.
That really is the main motivation for the game's story, and I think it's perfect for Ezio's send-off, but I'll talk more about that in his final sequence. We find what seems to be a hidden door underneath the assassin's main hideout in Masyaf, and is quickly revealed to be Altair's library that Ezio hopes will hold the answers he desires. We set off for Constantinople in search of the keys required to open this door. This sequence is probably the best introduction for the Ezio trilogy. It gives us the context we need while also including a great set piece for gameplay with the carriages, and wastes absolutely no time.
Nowhere left to run now!
Not for me, and not for you.
However, I do think it lacked that punch that the previous entries had with its opening titles, which was unfortunate, but it could have been a lot worse. The gameplay clearly has been perfected, and the tone has been set almost perfectly. It's much darker than the previous games, and I love that. Yusuf is introduced, and honestly, if he had more screen time in the trilogy, I would say he was probably the best side character out of the lot. He's well written with some great moments throughout, but we'll get more into that later. We also meet Sophia, who will become important later, as well as this guy. I don't really remember too much about that guy. I didn't like that bit of the plot. Sequence 2 is mainly a tutorial section to familiarize yourself with the new additions to gameplay, such as the hook blade and den defense minigame. The Brotherhood is back, but it's operated a little differently due to missions that flesh out each assassin's story as they rise to the rank of Master Assassin. This was expanded upon in Assassin's Creed 3, but quickly became a sideline feature. Den Defense gets introduced and is a minigame that not many people liked. I think it had potential, but the moment you realise you got about 4, maybe 5 options to defend in a fixed position, you know it's going to get tedious. Luckily, you rarely have to do these minigames unless you want to go for 100% completion. It's not that bad once you get the hang of it, but I just think it slows down the pacing way too much, and how much time was spent advertising it, it really wasn't, it just didn't have a great payoff. Sequence 3, we see Sophia and Ezio build a friendship through their interests in books that hold knowledge of the past, which is Ezio's favourite pastime of late. We traverse our first incredible ruin or tomb, whatever you want to call it, and it's brilliantly designed. I think anyone who's a fan of the Ezio trilogy thinks that making the tomb sections an integral part of the main narrative was a genius idea, and it really shows the passion and care the developers had for this game and the story it concludes. Then we finally get our first flashback, the thing the game was marketed with, Altair.
What is your name?
Altair, son of Umar.
Altair's memories are unfortunately quite brief, but they provide some well-needed backstory and get straight to the point. Sure, these sections are short, but the payoff at the end of the game is nothing but perfect in my eyes, and the sequences we do get with Altair expand his story a lot more, and it kind of makes playing through AC1 much better, which I'm currently doing. It's pretty clear that Altair isn't going to be a massive part of the story, even though it was kind of advertised that way, but he gets a significant portion of time, a lot more than he could have had, which I greatly appreciate. Sequence 4 is the end of the first half of the game, and is a great ending point. The stakes have been set. It's clear that Ezio's search for knowledge won't be as simple as it seems, as he's about to get wrapped into a conflict he never wanted to be involved in the first place. It's clear Ezio would rather spend more time with Sophia and his search for answers. but when does Ezio ever get what he truly wants? So a quick detour to sum up the first half. Gameplay has been perfected at this point. Assassin's Creed Revelations provides the best combat system in the trilogy and perfects the parkour with the hook blade and the gameplay opportunities that come with that addition. The story has become a more mature and more thematically appropriate narrative for Ezio's journey and has made it clear to everyone that this will be the end of that journey, and you'll be surprised how many games really do miss that mark. But Revelations absolutely nails it. Sequences 5 to 9.
You had my curiosity, but now you have my attention.
Everything starts to come together during these sequences. Altair's story becomes more clear as to why it connects to Ezio's journey, and Ezio gets the ending worthy of his character. Sequence 5 is spent on collecting another key with the help of Sophia and focusing on Altair's story, which surprisingly can be quite powerful if you end up caring for the characters within that story.
Altair! No! Strength. Altair.
Maria.
Ezio and Sophia get closer while the political powers that control the city quickly become more unstable, forcing Ezio to detour to help the other assassins. I love these moments because you kind of get a glimpse back to when Ezio was just a young guy in AC2. He's got that charisma back, he's trying to pull Sophia essentially, but he's doing it in a much more mature way than he would have done when he was in his late teens. So I always love this stuff. It's consistent with his character, and that's something the games really lack nowadays. Sequence 6 is when the narrative comes to its logical boiling point. Ezio has to simultaneously collect the keys needed while also destabilizing the Empire through assassination, causing a chain reaction slowly revealing that Ezio is the man behind these assassinations. So not only is Ezio interfering with the Empire as it is, but he's also interfering with the keys because the Templars are also after Altair's knowledge. Sequence 7 results in Altair's story coming to a close. He's older than Ezio and has learned all that the apple can teach him, or at least what he can understand. He faces the man who murdered his wife and takes over the Brotherhood for what I believe is simply for one goal: to preserve the knowledge he possesses in hopes that someone can find it when the knowledge is earned. Ezio has to leave Constantinople for the final key, leaving a path of destruction, as well as leaving Yusuf to lead the Brotherhood himself like he used to. Sequence 8 hasn't got much in it, so I'll keep it brief. Ezio assassinates another target and retrieves the key he needs, but it's revealed that Sophia is in danger and Yusuf as well, so it's now a race against time to get back to them. The story is a lot more character driven this time around. It's not a massive city all the time like Rome. This is purely character focused. This is the whole reason Ezio is doing this, for knowledge for himself and the people around him. This final sequence is just brilliant. There's not much else I could say. Ezio returns to find Yusuf not as a person but as a message. He's dead, and we are treated with one of Ezio's best moments. One of the moments that has been built up over the last 3 games.
Brothers, sisters, the whole city rises against us, while Yusuf's murderer waits and watches from the arsenal, laughing. Fight with me, and show him what it means to cross the assassins.
Ezio saves Sophia, and Desmond is forced out of the hell he's been in by Subject 16.
What are you doing? What is a man but the sum of his memories? We are the stories we live, the tales we tell ourselves.
Don't do this!
I'm saving you, idiot! Go! Go!
We enter the library to discover Altair's dead body. 2 scenes overlapped, showing everything we need to know. Ezio may not die here, but his journey with us certainly does. Ezio's final speech is directed directly to Desmond, or to the player if you can put yourself in Desmond's shoes. We've watched this guy grow over 3 games, and the journey is finally over. Ezio's speech in this moment is easily the best written moment in the franchise.
I have lived my life as best I could, not knowing its purpose, but drawn forward like a moth to a distant moon. And here at last, I discover a strange truth. I am only a conduit for a message that eludes my understanding. Who are we who have been so blessed to share our stories like this? To speak across centuries? Maybe you will answer all the questions I have asked. Maybe you will be the one to make all this suffering worth something in the end. Now, listen.
It perfectly ends Ezio's story while showing his development and acceptance. His final moments in his story is exactly why it was told. To simply be the messenger for a message that eludes his understanding. A pawn in a war spread across a millennium. We leave him as a wise man ready to settle and accept what many others could not. The story of Altair and Ezio is completed and remains the best story ever told in the Assassin's Creed franchise. I actually believe it is the second best Assassin's Creed game. I plan to make a list after I'm done with all the previous games. Assassin's Creed Revelations was the perfect ending point for many. The ending for both Ezio and Desmond is left ambiguous, and I believe less is more in this case. After Revelations, the franchise took a turn for the worst, and unfortunately that's still felt to this day. If you have never played Assassin's Creed Revelations, I absolutely think you should, so that does mean Assassin's Creed Revelations is a absolute classic. The music, writing and gameplay is peak Assassin's Creed in every way, and I wish it got more praise when it originally released rather than being scrutinized for being a copy and paste Ubisoft game. Thank you for watching.